The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the rights of the public have advance notice of and attend meetings of public bodies in which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Belvidere Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in Star Ledger and express times and submitted to the Town Clerk, Town of Belvidere, January 7th, 2019. Please rise for the flag salute.
Turn around.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Blum?
Here.
Mrs. Bikino? Dr. Zuppet?
Here.
Mr. LeBar? Mr. Lucas?
Here.
Mr. Matlock?
Here.
Mr. McInerney?
Here.
Mr. Mitchell?
Here.
Mrs. Pell?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mrs. Steffen?
Here.
Mrs. Williams? Here.
Thanks, Shelley. We reached the point in our agenda for our first public participation. Do we have any questions or comments from the public this evening? Yes.
You can go first. I was just wondering if anything is going to be done with the press box this season for football.
Could you identify yourself, please?
I'm Melissa Oriama. I'm the president of the Football Booster Club.
Thank you. You want to handle that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, we, do you want to handle it? Sure, you're more versed than I am, but reality is the answer, the short answer is no. We need to put a brand new press box up there, to the cost of somewhere in the range of about $100,000, give or take. We just got Jimmy to clarify his answer.
Just went times 2 in 5 minutes.
I just telling you what he's saying. And obviously, with the season starting on Friday, it's not going to happen this year.
Yeah, we could barely hear you back here.
I'm sorry.
But we did know that that members of the school knew about this last year. We could have helped raise the funds for this time and had it done already.
We found out that it was condemned over this summer, not last year. We had planned.
They were saying it last year.
That it was condemned, we had an engineer come in this summer to look at it to see what we were up against.
Yes.
Was there a price analysis done for the new press box?
I'm sorry, could you identify yourself too, sir? Thank
My
you.
name is Steve Richardson. I have 2 sons in the school, one who plays football. Was there a price analysis done for the rebuilding of that press box?
We had to bring in the engineer first to make sure that we needed to rebuild it. And with that, we're starting to get prices, but we don't have it done right now.
So we got a price of $100,000 for that?
That's an estimate, but it's not a guaranteed price, but it's going to be anywhere between at least 50 to 100.
Wow. Must be a nice press box.
No, it's actually just a basic slab and a riser. So,
Are you serious?
yeah.
New services too, though, Jimmy said. We had to run new electric.
Well, yeah, things like that,
There's a
yeah.
lot more
There's a lot more
than
to
just
it,
the
but
box.
not,
Yeah.
it's not going to be the Taj Mahals of press boxes by any means for that kind of money.
Yes, please.
Dawn Richardson, I have my son plays football. So what are we doing in the interim? Because from what I understand, you're supposed to be up high to film, and what are we doing?
Yeah, Mr. Bartow put together a plan where they're going to section off the last part of the bleachers, the top part of the bleachers, for that purpose.
Okay, another question too.
Sure.
To that is because my son is in the band also. So
They're moving the band down more close to the field, more in those first few rows.
is that technically okay according to the New Jersey football standards? Is that okay? Because I was just under the impression that it's got to be high enough. We have to have a PA system. There's certain things that have to occur. Is this okay for the rules for the football?
Yeah, Mr. Bartow's been in touch with NJSIA for this.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Joe Roth. I'm on the town council. At the last school board meeting, a parent expressed some concerns about the safety of students walking down on Franklin Street at the intersection of 4th, especially with the larger number of students that are now coming to this building. So I just wanted to say that we took that concern to heart, and the town has now at least put some stopgap measure along the street going up Franklin Street to make it a little bit safer. That's just an interim step. There'll be more permanent solutions as we discuss with Department of Transportation, what's permitted on the roadways under state law, but we do have that, and we'll be making it better. I just wanted to thank you for your suggestions, and if anything else like that comes to mind, please bring it to our attention. And the same for you all, too. If you hear of that, let us know, okay?
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, sir.
Could someone explain the problems we're having in the morning dropping the kids off?
Could you elaborate a little bit?
Well, we used to have a drive-through where we dropped them off there. That's all blocked off now.
Right.
If there's no provisions made for that, then if I can we can pull into the parking lot and let them walk through the gym.
Right,
That's a
so
lot
right
safer
now,
than having
the
them
provision
cross
is to
street.
come in on the Pequest Road side, and then drop the students off closest to the cafeteria, so they'll walk in through the cafeteria side.
Where the smallest kids' schools?
Correct, so there's a drop-off that's back there, that's actually, if you get a chance to look at it in the morning, it's actually well marked, so it's a one-way
Is that
in.
where the field hockey team kids play
Correct,
back there?
yeah.
Oh,
So it's a one-way in, one-way out, so the parents can drop the kids off, they're right there by the caf, come in through the high school cafeteria, and then the parents can exit out onto Pequest.
Oh, that's great.
So it eliminates the issues with the turnarounds, the trying to make a left-hand turn with the buses, and some of the stuff that had going on. So,
If I could just elaborate on that, the turnaround basically was a pretty unsafe situation, but that we've talked about for a while throughout the board, and it was recognized that it was something that we needed to correct in terms of making sure that we were as safe as possible in terms of our school environment. So that was part of the plan when we were looking at the consolidation of 3rd Street coming up to the Oxford Street School.
we encourage everybody to drop their kids off, and I call it the back because been here a long time, it's the back, but it's a smooth in and out, and the kids are right there by the cafeteria, so for a lot of the kids are right by their lockers anyway, so.
Thank you. Are we running into financial problems? Is that why a lot of these things aren't done in the summer or before the school year starts?
I'm not sure we mean by a lot of these things, because we actually did quite a bit this summer.
The press box, the situation with.
Well, we have to prioritize, and we look at spending 60, 70, upwards of 100,000 on the press box versus redoing classrooms, and it just comes down to a priority situation.
So are we in financial straits?
No.
What's the problem?
I don't have an extra $100,000 sitting around to put a press box up at the moment, but I don't think we're in a situation where we can't pay our bills.
Is that because funding in the county is poor, or because when we travel to other football stadiums, they blow us out of the water? It's not even close.
Yeah, and it's actually a good point, but for the majority of the schools that we play, especially the schools in Somerset County, in Union County, Brearley, Manville, Bound Brook, the county paid for all of those fields. All those fields were brand new, all by a grant through the county, so that included the press box, included the scoreboards. So I'm pretty sure Warren County wouldn't get behind that.
Have we ever asked them?
What's that? I know some of the bigger schools certainly have asked them, and they've gotten, as you can see, like Phillipsburg just redid their football field, but they paid for it all.
That was my next question. How did Phillipsburg get all that money and we can't get a press box done?
They get a lot more money from the state than we do. So, and that's just you can start writing letters, and I'd appreciate it if you did. But it's just a funding formula, and they have more students and they get more money. So, I mean, and that's simplified process, but that's just the way it goes. So,
Thank you.
Sure. Other questions, comments from the public? Correspondence.
We have one letter. It's a letter from Seth Wisner. This past spring, we welcomed a new baby boy into our family. I'd like to request an unpaid paternity leave of absence as permitted under the Family Medical Leave Act for 6 weeks beginning September 23rd, ending November 1st. Thank you for your understanding. You'll see that on the add-ons that were passed out.
My apologies. Just want to silence this. Superintendent, thanks, Shelley. Superintendent's report.
a few things to mention. Everybody received a copy today of an agreement with the Family Work Connection. As mentioned at the last meeting, we had quite a few parents out to try to come up with appropriate before and after care program. Chris Carabinas and I were able to meet with the Family Work Connection folks this morning. They have everything in place, and again, I mentioned at the last meeting that we used them in Harmony. It's a successful program. They are hoping that they can get it up and running for October the 1st. October the 7th is the absolute latest. But if we can approve that motion tonight, then they can start contacting the state for inspection to make sure the rooms are appropriate for use. That's the biggest hurdle. And once that goes through, then it should be smooth sailing for them. So they will come in. I'll have a message out at the end of the week. Their website will be open at the end of the week for parents to start to register with the fee structure and everything. So we feel it's going to be a good program for both the parents and the school district. And I know, Sean, you and I had spoken on the phone. In what they sent includes their liability insurance. And
Does.
There's a blurb about they need to provide it themselves.
Okay. Will and then we're named as a co-insured?
Additional insured.
Okay, additional insured, thank you.
Yeah. So it was a good, really productive meeting. We were glad that they came in, and we think it's a good solution for unfortunate situation. Worth mentioning, and I said in my weekly email, we are going through the QSAC process this year, which is state monitoring to go through the quality of the school district. I do need one board member to serve as a liaison to that committee. We'll probably meet maybe twice before we have to submit our paperwork, which is in November. And then the person would need to be available on March the 10th to meet with the county office. So if anybody's interested in doing that, please let me know. We'd like to probably meet sometime before the first week of October.
Marianne,
How much time during the workday is required?
Less than an hour.
Okay.
Less
I'll
than an
throw
hour.
my hat in for that.
Okay, thank you,
I'd like
Marianne.
to see how that goes.
Thank you.
And it's also one of those things we can do. We can call you into a meeting or something to that effect. But it is important that you're here on the 10th of March.
And just if I'm going to need to be here other times, it's okay. I just need to know that.
Yep.
Clarify
Okay.
that first.
Overall, I thought it was a smooth opening, with the consolidation of 3 or 4 districts, 3 or 4 buildings, and moving here and there. There's a few things. Cafeteria in the high school was an issue that was resolved. Some of the drop-off and pickup that Mr. Richardson mentioned was a little bit of a hiccup, but I think we've sort of worked through that over the last few days. The Belvidere Police has been very helpful, being here most mornings to make sure the traffic is flowing and making sure everybody's where they're supposed to be. So we do appreciate that. And again, Mr. Barrett gave some of the board members and a couple of community members the tour of the buildings just to see what the changes were. And again, we appreciate the effort that Mr. Barrett and Mr. Hoyt and the rest of the team put in to get this place up and running. As you can see, our media center is quite different from the last time we were here. We are still waiting for some furniture that hasn't come in. We were expecting, Jimmy said we were expecting 3 shipments of furniture this week, and only 1 of them came in so far. So probably within a week it'll be a much different place even further. So really do appreciate that. I heard a lot of positive feedback on back-to-school nights. Seemed like they were well received. We're going back and forth about keeping them the first teachers' days or the first student days, so we'll kind of look at that next year. Our sports have kicked off. We're really into the competition. Football does kick off on Friday night, home game against Brearley, so everybody's certainly welcome to attend. And my last thing is worth mentioning. Mrs. Koch will be speaking at the county school board's meeting next week. They are honoring her for her county teacher of the year. So if anybody would like to attend, that'd be nice to have some Belvidere folks there. It's Tuesday night at Hawk Point. If you don't know how to sign up, let us know. We'll be happy to help you sign up.
What time is it, Chris?
6:30? 6 or 6:30?
Oh, I can check.
Yeah, I think it's 6:30. So, and
Question.
it's a dinner.
Yes, Bob.
In the past, we've had students eating lunch in the hallways.
Mhm.
Do we still have that situation?
We started with that situation, but we rectified it over the last couple of days. We got some more tables into the cafeteria. It's 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock. We commandeered some space that had been previously used as lunch space. So I walked through lunch today, and there was nobody in the hallways.
Thank you.
Other questions for Chris?
Are they sitting on the floor in the cafeteria?
No, it's tables. There's tables put in Mrs. Koch's, her side room there. They put up these really, what I thought are kind of neat half tables that are against the wall. So there's a space for everyone to sit.
Yes, John.
Today being 9/11, did we have a moment of silence for those people that were lost as a body?
Yes.
You'd like to do that now?
Or whenever, maybe you have it scheduled for later.
Uh,
I don't know.
I hadn't thought about it for today, and that's maybe perhaps it's an oversight on my part, but,
Anytime, but I think it'd be appropriate for us.
okay, sure,
Okay.
we'll make that happen.
Okay, thank you.
And we had it in school today.
We did have it in school today.
Yeah.
Right at 8:49, I think.
Yeah, it was 8:49 because we changed periods and then 46 time, and they read something, and then we did one.
Anything else for Chris?
I have a concern about the feasibility of our freshman sports program. We have less freshmen coming in this year. Can you give us any feedback on that?
Currently, the only two freshman sports that we are planning to run are boys basketball and girls basketball. Last year, we ran both of those. We had, I think, between 17 and 18 students for each of those teams, which was about a normal amount. And then the only one that we added on later in the year was the girls softball. So it's certainly up for discussion. Probably something, if we're going to not run the basketball, we should probably make that decision relatively soon. And then if we're going to add or subtract in the spring, we should do that soon too.
I know we had, I recall we had considerable discussion on this point in board meeting, and I believe that there was parents, I think, in particular from Harmony, that were expressing a concern about not running, not offering the freshman offerings in sports.
Yeah. Basketball is always going to be the biggest concern because we can certainly fill. We have plenty. We'll always have enough students, I believe, to field the boys and girls basketball freshman team. It's the other sports, that still run it.
And then the other issue we come into is other schools and their ability to run a freshman program, and is there enough schools within our conference to make it viable?
Could we find that out
Absolutely.
prior to?
Yeah, that was researched, but we should. I think now that it's a new school year, it should be
I can have the
updated.
information for the next board meeting.
That makes sense.
We also had last year several cases where schools committed to it and then a week of dropped the game.
Yeah.
Day of.
I
sometimes.
can't remember exactly how many. I think the freshman softball team played maybe 11 games. Brad, you don't know that off the top of your head, do you?
No, but just girls soccer alone, there's 6 people in our conference. 4 of them don't even have JV girls soccer.
Yeah.
Let alone freshmen.
Let alone
Yeah,
freshmen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
we are running
it's
into
a
that.
very difficult thing to come by, but
Yeah.
it's possible if we're willing to try.
Yeah.
Right. So I think Chris's suggestion makes sense. Like, we should just look at the data, look at the numbers, and see if it's feasible or not viable. Okay.
Yeah. Sounds good. I'll have that information
Thank
for
you.
the next meeting.
Other questions for Chris?
I just
Mary
say
Ann?
I would like to say one thing, thanks to you, but I would like to publicly thank Brad Bartow for the book of the Booster Club minutes and bylaws and financial accounting. I asked for it enough in public, and I needed to thank him in public for finally getting it.
And as soon as Mr. Bartow sends that electronically, which he says he'll get it done for me, I will get that to the rest of the board as well.
So you're the sole keeper of the
Well,
football.
Chris has one too.
I have one also. I
will
felt it was
address the
appropriate to
fact
give Mary Ann
that it's pretty
the
full, and it
second.
has a lot of tabs, and it looks like everything's in there.
Yeah.
I did hear one thing is missing, but I won't mention what that was.
Rather than sending it, we could have it scanned and just put somewhere in Google Docs where everyone has access to it.
We could. That sounds good.
I make better use
Yeah.
of Google Classroom and email stuff.
It's a good idea. I agree. Anything else for Chris? Personnel, can we get a motion and a second? And this is revised, so it's items 1 through 9B.
Motion.
Second.
Brian and Mary Ann. Discussion.
I think you know the answer on number 6, Mary Ann, for the volunteer coach.
Yes, I did.
Any questions on items on personnel? 1 through 9B. Roll call, please.
Mr. Blum?
Yes.
Dr. Zuppis?
Yes.
Mr. Lucas?
Yes.
Mr. Matlock?
Yes.
Mr. McInerney?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Pell?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Steffen?
Yes.
And Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Under education, and this also was revised, can we get a motion on items 10 through 12A?
Motion. Second.
Brian and Glenn, discussion?
2 comments, if I may.
Absolutely.
Under 12, The Europe trip, that is now being run by Ms. Koch. We did have a previously approved trip when Mr. Owens was running the trip. It was to, I know for sure, Italy, Rome. Mrs. Koch just, and she has a new partner going with her, decided to make the change to go to Spain. So just that. And then on 12A, just to comment on an early dismissal, we do normally have 4 delayed openings that we run for professional development. We're asking for 1 early dismissal this year as a trade-off for one of those, where we are going to spend some time looking at our curriculum, which is really important for our QSAC process and getting the QSAC score.
Thank you, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion under education or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? We have an add-on in business. Thank you, Chris. So can we, under business, get a motion on 13 and 13A?
Motion
Discussion?
on 13A. Just 2 questions. One, confirmation that there is no expense to the district?
No expense to the district.
Okay. And the second one was paragraph 12. Is this a draft, or is this what's going to be signed? Paragraph 12 has,
It's a draft, to
Okay.
get, and she was working on that this afternoon to try to get something out to the board to have something approved tonight.
just make sure blank is deleted from paragraph 12 and Belvidere is inserted.
Got it.
We are not the blank school.
Yep.
That's all I.
How is their fee structure? Is it just the same as what Little Cedar's fee structure would be?
I don't honestly know the answer to that, only because I don't know what the fee structure was at Little Cedars.
Okay.
But I was looking actually at the fee structure that Marianne gave me for the Washington Township,
Washington Township,
and it was
yeah.
similar to that.
So, I'll put the question to you, Marion. Does it appear to be affordable and reasonable?
Washington Township is reasonable, yeah.
It's reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's based on the hours the students are there, so if you're getting picked up at 4, it's 1 fee, if you're getting picked up at 5, it's 1 fee, if you're getting picked up at 6,
Right,
it's
if
6:30,
if
it's
you're a
all.
drop-in and you just need it one day a week,
Yeah.
every now and then, it's
Yeah.
this much. If you sign up for so many hours, it's this much. I mean, it's kind of complicated, but it's pretty fair.
Yeah, it
Okay.
makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
So they're not gonna hit you for 5 days if you're only bringing your kid for 3.
Okay,
So,
good.
And you get a deal if you bring them for 5 instead of 1.
Yeah, and then
Well, that
there's,
makes sense.
lesser charges if you have 2 students, 2 children
They
in the program.
discount if you have 2 children? Okay, good. Sounds good.
Yeah, and it just locks us in for this school year, and then we'll reevaluate come the springtime. And
And then we think our go-live date will be,
we are hoping for 10/1,
Mhm.
it's going to be up that we can get a state inspector in to look at the space,
okay,
which they said could happen, but they don't want to guarantee it, but they'll guarantee the 7th.
okay,
The 1st is a Tuesday, the 7th is the following Monday.
right. It's moving along all things considered, I think it's moving along.
It's moving
pretty
along
quickly.
well, yeah. We explored a couple other options. We feel this is the best for the district.
Yeah. Anything else on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, this might be a good time in our agenda, following John's suggestion, for just a brief moment of silence and recognition of the victims and the survivors of 9/11. Thank you. You know, it was 18 years ago today, so if you were born today, you'd be an adult. If you were born originally on the original 9/11 date. Continuing business. Chris, any continuing business?
Not for tonight, no.
No? Anything from the board?
I don't know, we had a pretty good enrollment committee meeting. I don't know, actually, I think Mr. Blum will probably agree, we were going to wrap up the enrollment committee, and we found a reason to keep it going.
Okay.
So it was a productive meeting, and actually, I thought the conversation was really, really good.
Can
So
you, one
continue.
of you touch on the highlights?
The main highlight was, with Mr. Kruber's suggestion, we decided to try to get the nonprofit organization started by having a speaker come in. So if anybody knows of anybody that's interested, or if you're interested, please join us.
So to piggyback on Mr. Blum, Chris Carabinus met with the person who runs the Educational Foundation for the Bethlehem
Oh.
Township Schools, And I was going to reach out and see if she can come in and talk to our committee, and then almost give us some ideas of really how to get it up and running. So,
Okay.
so
Good.
productive meeting.
Catherine?
I had a question. Chris Carabinas instituted a new cell phone policy,
I did, and I shared that with the board. I don't know if everybody read that.
K through 8, so really happy about that.
Yeah.
Did Mr. Lazaro implement anything?
He is just standing pat on what's currently in place in the high school.
I have to say that I am new to the high school with my daughter, and every teacher that I met with has some kind of a policy in the classroom. Most of them have something on their desk that they're put in. All of them have said that they don't want it out unless they tell them that, okay, we have 5 minutes, we're done with our lesson, you guys can have 5 minutes. Other than that, I honestly think, and I was not aware when I was at the meeting last time, that although there's not a policy in place, there is restriction of cell phone in the classrooms in the high school. And I feel pretty secure with that, because every teacher, no one asked the question, that was the first thing that they discussed.
It's interesting because I've just been walking around in and out of classrooms over the last few days, and how many, and specific to the high school, to answer your question, how many high school teachers have either Deb has some sort of a lockup in her room for the cell phones, and whether it's the shoebox, I'm going to say it wrong.
Your daughter's freshman, right? Is that for all the grades, or?
Okay.
Yeah, so it's at the teacher's discretion. The teacher says it's away, it's away. And I probably would guess 90% of the teachers have that policy in the high school. It's away. There are moments where they're going to be out in the halls and maybe doing a couple of things where it's easier to use the cell phone. So yeah. But I did share Chris's with everybody. I don't know if everybody took a look at it. Yeah, went over. I thought very positively.
Thank you.
It sounded like.
Any other questions?
Sean, where do we meet for executive now?
We will go into the guidance conference room.
Okay, thanks.
Anything under new business?
The only new business was getting the before and after care set up. That was
Okay.
we spent a lot of time on that over the last
Okay.
couple of weeks.
Public participation. Do we have any other, we reached a point in our agenda for our second public participation. Do we have any comments or questions from the public?
It has to be related to the agenda.
Not necessarily.
I just had two things real quick.
And if you could identify yourself, please.
Sure. Heather Stokes. I have two kids in 6th and 7th grade. In regards to the cell phone policy, as a parent, I'm in total agreement with it. I think it's a clear distraction. My kid has no reason to be on their phone. I think it's a distraction to the teachers. So as a parent, I'm all for it. There's no reason for it. Second, just looking at the approval of field trips, I was curious how far in advance you guys set up the field trips, because unfortunately there's a tradition that my daughter last year missed out on Ellis Island. It never happened. So I don't know how that works, and if you guys are they all set for this year, or are there any changes or any taken away?
We usually, good question. We usually reach out and have the teachers give us their proposals, usually by the end of this month. But we're not locked into that. If something comes up, which happens all the time, we're more than willing to throw it on the agenda and have board approval. So we like to get the reason why I like to get as much as we can now is just lining the buses up is usually the most difficult part of the process. But somebody came to us in May and said, hey, and it's happened, I got a great field trip, I can't give a good example, but we usually will run those.
Any other questions from the public? Yes.
I wasn't going to ask anything today. My name's Jackie. Sorry, I'm short. Since you brought up
Jackie, I'm sorry, your last name, please?
Donegan.
Thank you.
Since you brought up the field trips, I do have a question, though. In light of what happened, I think it was a year ago, on Route 80 in Mount Olive with that accident, since, I know there can be a shortage of bus drivers and whatnot, what are we doing to ensure that whoever is driving the kids is, what I'm saying, I don't know what the word is, but is vetted, properly, because obviously that person must have been vetted by someone, and then they turned out to not, do what they need to do to keep those kids and the teachers safe. So I just am curious.
Well, actually, I think this is one of the times where it's probably good that the state stepped in on this one. and they're really taking over that whole vetting process. Now, we're lucky, I think we're lucky that we generally work with 2 or 3 bus companies that we know really well, and over, we're getting the same bus drivers over and over again. It's rare that we have to go outside of the, as I always say, the big 3 around here. It really does fall on the bus company themselves, though, to really go through that vetting process, to really make sure that their bus drivers are trained. They have to give us assurances yearly, which they do, but at the end of the day, it falls on them. And we have to, unfortunately, trust that they go through that process.
They're required to get physicals.
Yeah.
It's pretty rigid. I actually
But
just
how
met with one of our
often-
companies recently about it.
I apologize. Let's say January 1, they go and they submit their information, their driver's license, you know, their social security number, and they say, okay, they're good to go. January 5th, they get arrested for something, and then you wouldn't want them to be driving your kids, but the bus company wouldn't know about it until the following year if
Do
they
they-
only get.
No,
checked
I
once a
don't think,
year.
no. It's
Right?
almost immediate. It's
Okay.
almost immediate.
All right.
They're gonna find out right away, because there's something, there's all provisions, and I know in our contracts, there's a provision that if one of us gets arrested, you have like 10 days to tell us. And if you don't, we find out, then, you're going on and on. It's the same idea that if they don't, if somehow the bus company finds out, using your example, March 20th, they're losing their license. That's it. There's gonna be there's no recourse backwards, so
Okay.
it's almost immediate.
Just curious.
Yeah,
That's
good
okay.
question.
It's a good question. Other questions, comments from the public? Okay, we have an executive session. We're just doing superintendent evaluation.
And Mr. Edelstein is here just to give us an update
Oh, that's
on
right.
one of our
Thanks.
arbitration.
All right, so can we get a motion and a second to go into executive?
Motion.
Second.
I just wanted to ask
Oh,
one question. I
go
don't know
ahead,
if I can. Again?
Go on.
Chris Carabinas told me that for curriculum, not preschool, but K through 8, we have a committee of teachers and coordinators that write the curriculum.
So we as a cluster, so for the 4 districts, we have 2, right now we have 2 coordinators. Ms. Begelli is one, and Mr. Staples is the other. I know Ms. Begelli's probably at the point where she's going to give that all to Mr. Staples. And then what we do is we try to get teachers from each of the 4 districts to come in and work on that curriculum.
So White, Harmony, Hope, and Belvidere is on the same, you all use the same curriculum?
Correct.
And is that typical that
It is.
it's like the other districts, like Phillipsburg, Hackettstown, writing their own curriculum, not
Correct.
following a state form, like mandated?
So we're going to follow the state mandate anyway, but the state, I want to say is loose, but certainly gives you a lot of leeway in what you can put in there. It's just the same that ideally you're going to walk into an 8th grade math class in Belvidere, Hope, Harmony, and White Township. It's all going to be the same.
Okay.
It's not going to be. You have 4 different teachers teaching in 4 different ways. It's going to have a different life to it. But at the end of the day, are we covering all of the same standards? And the answer is yes.
To meet the state testing?
Correct.
Okay, so ideally, they're all on the same page,
Ideally.
but it depends on the pace of the class.
Absolutely.
And the students and where they're at.
Correct.
Thank you.
Sure. You good, Kevin? Okay.
Thank
good.
you.
Is this negotiations, the other item for?
Arbitration update.
Arbitration, okay. So we have a motion to go in executive for both the superintendent evaluation and arbitration update. And Brian, I think you made the motion. And Glenn, did you make the second? Or Mary Ann? Mary Ann did? Okay, it's hereby resolved the board will now go into private session to discuss both superintendent evaluation and arbitration update. Any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential will be made public as soon as practicable. Minutes of the private session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. The board will reconvene in public session at the conclusion of the closed session. This may be a while for the public, just so you know. I don't know if folks are sticking around for. We're not really anticipating taking any action. So.